We are dealing with catecholamines. Actually, there are two hormones in this category. One is adrenaline, also called epinephrine, and the other one is noradrenaline, also called norepinephrine. Actually, they are produced from adrenal gland. This is a kidney, actually, right kidney. On top of the right kidney, what you see here is the adrenal gland. Since we have two kidneys, we have two adrenal glands. And this adrenal gland, this is the cross section of the adrenal gland. It has an inner region called medulla. This adrenal medulla is producing these catecholamines, adrenaline and noradrenaline, while the peripheral region, adrenal cortex, also is producing some steroid hormones. We will see them later. Now, you may just understand that these catecholamines are produced by adrenal medulla. The same figure but expanded again. So, epinephrine and norepinephrine are released from adrenal medulla. But during exercise, but not only during exercise, whenever the person is under stress. So, a stressful situation leads to the release of these catecholamines. What are they doing? They stimulate effects in the muscles and liver similar to those produced by glucagon. Actually, what's the function of glucagon? Glucagon is working to increase the concentration of glucose in the blood. Ultimately, epinephrine and norepinephrine also are raising the concentration of glucose available in the blood because our muscles and other systems of the body are doing a hectic work because the person is in a do or die situation, or we say these hormones are preparing our body for a fight or a flight mechanism. So for that purpose, these catecholamines, these hormones, they increase heart rate, blood pressure, blood glucose level, blood flow, etc. to the heart and lungs. They also stimulate enlargement of the bronchial tubes and dilation of the pupils. The fact is that within a short span of time, the person is in need of a large amount of oxygen and a large amount of energy because he is in a flight or a fight mechanism. It is a life-saving situation there. So, increased heart rate, blood pressure, blood flow, etc. are meant for increasing the supply of glucose to the different tissues of the body, for example, muscles, etc. At the same time, increased the blood glucose level will ensure that sufficient amount of substrate is available for the muscle cells to meet their requirements. You see, epinephrine, it is actually capable of controlling blood flow also through specific tissues. They stimulate constriction of blood vessels in the skin, etc. Restricting blood flow to these tissues during exercise. Instead, they stimulate relaxation of the arterioles in the muscles because muscles are working very fast in such moments, resulting in the dilation and increase of the blood flow. And how is the hormone working? This is a situation of a liver cell. In a liver cell or in the protein, in the muscle as well, the epinephrine is binding with a receptor present on the plasma membrane. This is a cell surface. So this membrane is the plasma membrane. This is the receptor protein for epinephrine. Epinephrine is binding there, and this binding is inducing GTP to couple with the G protein, and this G protein is now combining with or binding with the adenyl cyclase. And you have heard that this adenyl cyclase is converting ATP into CAMP, cyclic adenosine monophosphate, and this is a second messenger. This cyclic AMP is activating protein kinase A. This protein kinase A will activate phosphorylase, and this phosphorylase is actually glycogen phosphorylase. It will act upon glycogen to produce more glucose and to release more glucose into circulation. So binding of the epinephrine on its receptor of the liver cell ultimately results in the release of more glucose into circulation, so that this circulating glucose can reach the muscles, the skeletal muscles, etc., and meet the energy requirement which is actually there in that emergency situation. And the situations are explained here. Here you see, this is actually in the case of muscles. As usual, epinephrine is binding with the receptor. Receptor is actually having a region within the cytoplasm, and it is activating G protein. This G protein is then interacting with the phospholipase enzyme, phospholipase C, which is converting membrane phospholipids into ionosyl triphosphate and other second messengers. You can see here membrane phospholipid is converted into ionosyl triphosphate. We have studied about it earlier. This ionosyl triphosphate, it is diffusing through the cytoplasm and binding with the specific receptors on the endoplasmic reticulum. You know that inside the muscle, the endoplasmic reticulum is actually storing calcium ions. Actually, we call it sarcoplasmic reticulum. So here you can see this is the endoplasmic reticulum of the muscle. Inside that one, in that lumen, we have plenty of calcium ions. And what happens then? IP3 binds with its receptors on the endoplasmic reticulum. This is stimulating and it is stimulating the release of calcium ions into cytoplasm. You can see here calcium ions are released into cytoplasm. And these calcium ions bind with the regulatory protein called calmodulin. This is the regulatory protein called calmodulin. This calmodulin is then activating the other intracellular proteins, ultimately producing the effects of hormone. Actually, these events are taking place in a very short span of time. That's why adrenaline is actually a quick acting hormone in many instances. Adrenaline or epinephrine. Epinephrine or adrenaline, this is the one. And this is norepinephrine. You just find out how do they differ from each other. This is an NH3 group, and here only NH2 plus is there, and one of the proton or hydrogen atom is replaced with a methyl group. That is epinephrine. And what are the responses? And how are these hormones produced? Actually, the hormones are mainly controlled by hypothalamus. See, there is a stressful situation. Maybe you may be frightened within a short span of time, and under such conditions, you are in a stress, and the path of nerve impulse is moving, and it will reach the adrenal medulla. It also will reach the adrenal cortex. So some of the impulses reach the adrenal cortex, while the other impulses reach the adrenal medulla. And from the adrenal medulla, epinephrine and norepinephrine are produced. And these two hormones mediate short-term stress response. Just keep it in your mind. Short-term. It will last only for a short period of time. While, come here, you can see here the corticoids, corticosteroids, for example, glucocorticoids. They are mediating long-term stress response. In this chapter, we are studying only about the short-term stress responses mediated by epinephrine and norepinephrine. What are the results? As you know, heartbeat and blood pressure increases, blood glucose level increases, muscles become energized, so that you can meet with your do or die situation. Regarding glucocorticoids and mineralocorticoids, we will study in another chapter, another slides. And same thing only. Catecholamines are mediating the short-term stress responses. They are also called the flight or fight responses. And these are actually similar. These responses are similar to those caused by the stimulation of sympathetic nervous system. As I told you earlier, the same things are only given here. And see here, epinephrine is acting quickly. That's why sometimes epinephrine injections can be used to treat different life-threatening conditions. For example, it can be used to stimulate the heart to start beating in some people, some patients with the cardiac arrest, especially anaphylactic shock caused by severe allergy, etc. Injected epinephrine will open up the air passages and restore breathing. The release of epinephrine and norepinephrine is very fast because it is under nervous system control. We found it earlier, hypothalamus. And although the hormonal effects are similar to those of sympathetic nervous system, their influence on the body lasts about 10 times or longer. These are the different responses. This light gray colored arrow marks are indicating promotes stress response, while this one dark red color indicates counteracts stress response. See here, when there is a stress, it is reaching the hypothalamus, it is inducing the production of adrenal hormones. From here they are increasing the blood related activities, heart rate, etc. At the same time, the sympathetic nerves are also activated by means of the cardiac centers in the medulla and medulla of the brain, and they are also ultimately inducing the production of norepinephrine. What about the counteractive measures, rest or calm activity? The brain is inducing the parasympathetic nervous system to produce acetylcholine. You know that acetylcholine is a neurotransmitter and it will make us actually calm and quiet. So the ultimate response is a sum total of all these activities. Same thing. And how the increased glucose demand is met with in the body by the breakdown of glycogen. Glycogen is a source of immediate source of glucose. It can be degraded very fast from the liver. At the same time, they inhibit the glycogen synthesis in the muscle as well, because more glucose should be made available at that time. Here, binding of the epinephrine with the receptor is called beta adrenergic receptor, and the same mechanism which we found earlier. But here, what is produced is glycerol, fatty acid, etc. Why? This hormone sensitive lipase is activated by the protein kinase A, and the lipase is acting upon triacylglycerol to produce ultimately glycerol and free fatty acid. Because if this glycerol and free fatty acid are available, some of the energy requirement can be met with by their oxidation, and that much glucose can be spared for other organs. See, epinephrine stimulates the hydrolysis of triacylglycerol. A summary of the effects of these catecholamines in the fight or flight emergency situation. What are we told earlier and actually given here also. What are the different types of receptors in different organs for this adrenaline? In heart, increasing heart rate, in the heart, the receptor is beta 1 receptor. In the blood vessel, for vasoconstriction, for constricting the blood vessel to narrow the lumen, thereby to increase the pressure, alpha 1 adrenergic receptor is there, while for vasodilation, to enlarge the diameter of the blood vessel and to reduce the blood pressure, there is the beta 2 adrenergic receptor. In the lungs, for bronchodilation, for the exchange of increased volume of air, there is the beta 2 adrenergic receptor, and for the uterus, for relaxation, there is the beta 2 adrenergic receptor. Told that much about catecholamines.